Alright, so what we're going to cover right now on this tutorial is how to shuffle. Now I see a lot of videos out there that basically try to cover a little bit of shuffling, but they tend to go through this where they show a shuffle, they don't really show how to perform a proper table shuffle. So I'm going to go through the steps of what I do with my students. First, we're going to start with the deck is in the middle of the table, of course, and we're going to separate it into two equal halves. One thing that this is just a nice touch to make you look a little bit more professional. When you separate the deck, don't grab it with one hand and move it to the right. Okay, it's kind of like how a beginner would, a child would. So what I teach people to do is that with if they're going to separate the top half to the right, with my right hand, I'm going to take these cards and I'm going to push this to the right or pull this to the right as this one pulls this side over to where it's nice equidistant. Both hands move at the same time, as opposed to doing this on one side. Some minor detail, it just makes it look a little bit more professional to separate them equally. So I recommend it. On the back, what I'm actually doing here is, and this is going to be hard to explain, a common mistake of what people do is they slide these cards, and then they end up with these cards that are uneven, and they find themselves looking to fix it with their fingers in front, and it gives them an extra step. So what I'm recommending is from the back, if you watch, now my left hand would normally be on this side, but I'm going to show just what my right hand does. My right hand is putting pressure in the middle of this deck, and I'm lifting the cards up and over. I'm never sliding them. That's the important part. I never slide these. That's what makes all the problems. You just got to be aware of it. Primarily, that's what the problem is. This is the technique I use, where it's just pressure in the middle and I lift it up. But for the most part, all you need to do is be aware that don't slide it. Lift it up and move it over. Okay. You need to get in the habit of putting these or pulling these apart equally. A lot of people, they end up with one side very heavy. They grab too deep on one side. You're always going to end up with clumps in your deck if you do this. For the most part, this is pretty easy. You're just going to have to sit there and make some adjustments as you keep working on this. You know, if you're getting too heavy on one side, you know, you just got to sit there and keep this thumb in the back that measures what to pull away. You just got to keep moving it and figure out your place. There's a couple drills that I'm going to put in future videos to show you little techniques that will teach you how to find the center very, very quickly. But for right now, I'm just going to kind of start going through the shuffle. So once we get used to our two halves, we're going to turn the deck a little bit. We're going to create a small V. A lot of people overdo this V. When you do this, it forces your hands to come together in a very uncomfortable fashion. Your wrists, your arms, everything is buttoned together. So what we're going to do is we're going to sit there and we're going to keep this V very minor so that our hands can look nice over the top. And that's the other thing I'm going to talk about, is that when you're putting your hands on this deck, anytime you can, you would like your four fingers to be together, relaxed, you know, straight, that sort of thing. I mean, when I say straight, I mean not straight like this. I mean just relaxed. Okay, this will make a nice looking. Any technique you're using with a dealing procedure, you pretty much always want to make it look nice. Also, I'll give you an idea of what doesn't look nice. If my fingers are curled and I go to shuffle this way, that looks, you know, that's something that is not providing good customer service. It doesn't look like you're actually, you know, dealing like a professional. Okay, same kind of thing. When some people do a shuffle where their fingers come on the outside, anytime that you're separating your fingers, you start looking worse. It starts looking a little ugly. Okay, so I recommend all four fingers over the top, and then what we're going to do, and this is the key, we're going to pull this deck and we're going to bevel the deck towards us. Most people do not show this. Beveling the deck is what allows you to get to the back of the cards. Okay. So to use one hand, I'm going to sit there and show you what I'm doing. I'm pulling these cards up over my thumb. It's like I'm rolling my thumb underneath this card. Okay? If you don't do this, what you're going to end up doing is I'm going to make some jogs in this deck. And if I just go straight up and down, you see how that dropped? Because I can't get those cards. Okay? But if I pull it towards me, it's just like if you're opening up a book. You're going to sit there and you're going to bend the cover or the the back of the book, and you're going to be able to feel every page as it goes by. When you're trying to get to one page, you want to be able to feel that. You have to bevel the deck or bevel the book. So what we're going to do is we're going to bevel the deck just the same way. I pull these cards towards me, and now every card goes off my thumb, even though it was messy beforehand. Now, I'm not recommending shuffling when you have a disorganized deck, but it does illustrate a principle. What we're doing here is we are pulling these decks towards us and letting these riffle, letting these fall off. This is a great practice drill to get you used to this. If you also notice, my thumb isn't up on this corner. Okay, my thumb is back here in this manner. So if you want a couple practice runs, you just pull the deck towards you, and you just do this a few times. Okay, and then what we're going to move to is this. We got our slight V, we got our fingers over the top, we pull the deck towards us, and now we're going to just lean in. I lean in my right side as I start to lift, and I shuffle those together. Okay? Next, and this is important, I tell people it's a 3-step process. First step is the riffle. Second step is the push. I take my middle finger here, ring finger here, thumb here. I join my index fingers just to, once again, I don't want it to look ugly by separating my fingers. So I join this together. And what I'm doing is I'm pushing one time and turning the deck. Okay? Push it to about the halfway mark. Next, I come on up, and this is called squaring the deck. I apply pressure on this back corner. The corners that are farthest away from me, I apply pressure. What it does, it creates this little V, or this inside V. I used to call it the butterfly. It makes a little butterfly in the back. But what it does is that's where my thumbs pick this up. Okay, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to squeeze these corners to make it look nice. Now if you notice, watch how efficient the shuffle is. It's not a bunch of movement. I'm going to show you a bad one. This is what a lot of people do. They do a lot of movement. Okay, no, shuffle should be riffle, push, square. That's it. Okay, after 2 riffles, or 2 shuffles, you're going to do what's called stripping the deck. I put my pinky on the ground. I take a section off the top. My right hand does the movement. Okay, and that's it, about 4 sections. Do not flare the deck. This is a common problem. What it's doing is it's exposing this bottom card. So this has to be level to the table, level to the felt. I used to tell a lot of students just keep both pinkies on the ground. That's the best way to remember it. This pinky's on the ground to keep me, all it does is keep me low to the table. So I'm going to do one more. And that would be the end of my shuffle. So it's a riffle, riffle, strip, riffle. Now, last point. When you're ready, after you've done this a few times, you're going to roll one side over. You're going to do your regular shuffle. Don't put them all the way together. Just put them halfway together. Spread it out. And what you want to make sure that you do is you don't have more than 4 cards in a clump. Okay? So I have 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, etc. And you sit there and you see I got a 3-card clump right here. It looks like a 4-card clump on this end. 4 cards, I always say, is acceptable. It's nice to get them when you get 3-card and 2-card clumps. It's a nice shuffle. You'll notice that you're going to have a really consistent, clean shuffle. You want to avoid any clumps in your shuffle. If you're having clumps on the bottom, it's because you're not beveling the deck. If you're having clumps usually at the top, it's because you're starting one side too soon. And that could also happen with the bottom side, is that you'll see that your cards, as you separate them, you're starting one side before the other. Just get used to separating them in the middle, shuffling them at the same time, and having a nice even riffle with the beveling of the deck. One last point. If you're not separating these equally, it's really hard to not get clumps in them. It's really, really hard to not get big sections that are not being shuffled. That's why there's such an emphasis to get in the habit of pulling these cards apart with 26 cards on each side approximately. But you should be within the ballpark of about 4 cards. Okay? That's it.